Hi everyone, welcome to thunderbaytrees.ca. My name is Jay, and today we're going to talk a little bit about construction damage. And sometimes, like when you're putting in sidewalks or art projects like these pelicans behind me. No.
Partridge.
Partridge behind me. Concrete partridge. Especially when you have them near trees. Whenever you do any kind of construction, whether it's installing art or sidewalks, you always run the risk of interrupting the tree. Now, within this little area, before we continue, I should introduce this person beside me.
Hi, I'm Paul.
This is my friend Paul Wolf, and he's the guy who installed these concrete partridge. So maybe you just want to tell us just a minute or two, kind of what's the deal behind these partridge ending up at Boulevard Lake.
Sure. Clean, Green, and Beautiful, I think, is a committee of the City of Thunder Bay.
Okay.
And they set aside some funds to make Thunder Bay clean, green, and beautiful, apparently. And
these partridge aren't very green.
No, but they're beautiful, though. Actually, you know what?
They are.
Concrete, according to LEED Building Technologies, is actually quite green because you don't need to ship it like granite or marble from around the world. So you can build. It's actually quite green. You get LEED building points. But anyway.
Wow, okay.
So it's actually not too bad for green. But yeah, so they put out proposals to the request for proposals to the community, and 3 sculptors, local artists, put in bids, and I got to do one here. And so this is a family of birds walking in the park. It's just like families like the one walking by do in this park. They walk in the park. So that's what it's about.
Now, now before you install these things, right within the root zone of this jack pine, did you consult an arborist?
You know what? I went around and with sticks, I put them in the ground. I said, I want a bird here, 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 and they were all significantly closer to the tree. Like they were going to be like pretty well hugging the tree. And then an arborist came by and moved all my birds further out, away from the roots, and I had to be okay with it.
Actually, I'm just noticing here that where these partridge are placed, it kind of makes sense because they aren't too close to the tree. Typically, if you look at a tree and you sort of see the root, or sorry, the crown. If you imagine the crown kind of being like an umbrella and the water kind of running off, that's sort of considered the root zone. If you go down to the ground, and the majority of the roots for any tree are typically within that sort of crown area, and they're within the first foot or so of the soil. So how far down did you have to dig?
For the big mom bird, they go down 4 feet, and then for each of the baby birds, they go down 2 feet, and then you've got a pad that's about, it's almost a cylinder that's 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep.
Wow. Okay.
So they're
that's significant.
yeah, they're almost. I think the bases are almost bigger than the birds.
Yeah.
In some cases.
It almost sounds that way.
Yeah, they're heavy.
How heavy are these birds?
350 pounds each, and then mom is 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. No, my mom isn't 1,000 pounds. That mom is.
That
yes.
mom is there. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, so looking at roots, so the chances are you did mess up or disturb the roots a little bit, because even though the majority of the roots are, within that first foot, as well as, going out about the width of the crown, they can go out to 2 to 3 times the amount of that. So if this is, let's say, I don't know, what would it be, 20 feet, it can actually go out 3 times beyond that roots. You can find jack pine roots out over there, and mom was probably, hanging out with a few of the jack pine roots.
Okay, so like, not that I can do anything about it now.
Yeah, and actually, all in all, this looks pretty good.
But who cares if you hit a root? What's the deal? Like what's it going to do to a tree?
Well, trees use roots to basically take up nutrients and moisture and that sort of thing. And when they're severed, it basically limits the chance of a tree to, or limits the opportunity, if you can think of it that way, of a tree to absorb water nutrients. So if you severed a bunch of roots right here at the base of the tree, you're basically cutting off a significant portion of roots from there beyond. Sometimes people might be doing construction and they might have to dig a little narrow path of maybe about a couple inches to lay down I don't know, some sort of locate electricity or something. And if it's really close to the tree, in a sense, you've severed a whole pile of roots. So that's why you have to be careful. And sometimes people will put in sidewalks around their house, near a tree, and 2 years later, they're silver maple's dying. And you ask, did you do some construction in the last couple of years? And they say, well, we just put in that sidewalk. So, so that's why it's just important to be sensitive to that. I know the city, in a previous episode, they do some root pruning whenever they have to do road construction in the boulevards to mitigate that damage to the roots. And that's kind of a neat thing the city does. And according to Shelley over at the city, it's a pretty good program, and they've saved a lot of trees that way.
Cool. Because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, the roots would go straight down. I didn't know that roots sort of hung out in the surface.
Well, at one point, like, back before people actually looked at roots, they used to think that it was sort of barbell. Like, the crown would be sort of barbell, and you have the trunk, and then the roots just be this little barbell, if you think of it as a profile.
Yep.
And that just isn't the case. It's more like crown, and then the stem, and then it goes out. So.
And I also thought that roots just, the different trees had different root systems. Some went straight down, some went straight out.
Yep.
And that they would sort of get over it. They would just basically send out roots in a different direction and sort of make it happen. But
yeah, well, that's true. Like, there's certain hardwoods that have more of a main taproot, and then other ones are more spreading and more shallow roots. But the bottom line is roots need to go where the water nutrients are, and that's typically near the surface. So you look at a place like Boulevard Lake here, and the tree roots, whenever you see a tree, those tree roots are in direct competition with the lawn. So you have the small, finer feeder roots along the surface, and then you have the bigger roots that sort of hold the tree in place as well. I originally was going to talk about how your partridge are going to kill the tree because you messed up the roots, but in fact, did a pretty, the city, when they located these, or whoever it was who put where the partridge were going to go, I guess it was the city,
yep.
They kind of weren't part of that. They did a good job. However, this jack pine just overall looks kind of awful. Now, I didn't see the tree before the pruning. You see some fresh shiners here. Shiners are kind of the, where the recent prunes are. What were the branches like? You've seen this.
Yeah,
okay,
they were just dead. And so there was like 10 live branches and 25 sort of dead branches.
Okay.
And I just thought that's the way jack pine looked. I just thought they were just ugly trees. And like, really, honestly. And because I've seen them all over the city of Thunder Bay, and they get sort of these lower branches get all black and laden with the old cones that didn't fall off, and all the needles get all...
Yep.
And I thought that's the way they look.
Yeah.
But this one had looked particularly nasty, and
be a perfect home for your birds.
well, there's very few trees around here that you could work with.
Yeah.
This one just happened to be out from the tree line.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll work around it, work around a natural feature.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this natural feature is going to be a feature for too long.
Well, yeah. Well, you also bring up another interesting point too. You describe jack pine as these kind of snarly, and generally speaking, trees kind of have different forms. So depending on where they live, is how they look. So open-grown jack pine. There's a very technical term called, and it's very fitting, a wolf tree.
Oh, nice.
there's actually, and wolfy trees or wolf trees, are open-grown, and they're big, heavy, massive branches. Like you see this jack pine. There's some heavier branches, whereas if you were in a pure jack pine stand, or if we were to rummage around back there and try to find one, although I doubt there's any back there, if you were to find one, you would find a narrow, almost like a matchstick, a profile. Like it'd be narrow, it'd be a couple little branches, dead branches along the bottom. Then you have this nice little crown at the top, capturing sunlight, and so it's partly dependent on where the resources are. If you're open grown, you can put some energy as a tree. You can put some energy into your branches and catch as much of the sunlight as possible. But if you have competition all around you, you're going to grow up. And that's sort of what's happening with this tree. This one isn't growing up. Well, it is a little bit, but it's got these heavier branches and more spreading than what would be typically found in a jack pine sand flat, for example.
Sand flat.
They grow in sand.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's usually flat. So hopefully you've learned a thing or two today about, I guess, jack pine and concrete partridge and messing up the soil when you want to put partridge and sidewalks in. Until next time, I'm Jay Dampier for ThunderBayTrees.ca, and this is my friend Paul Wolf, where we talk about anything and everything as long as it relates to trees in and around Thunder Bay. Now, before you installed these...
Thanks! She said I'm gorgeous.
I think it was the birds.
Oh, okay.